The first rule of galactic bureaucracy was simple: never trust the archives. Commander Vox had heard it 100 times from his third mother, usually after she'd had too much fermented root and started muttering about things better left forgotten. But like most advice from third mothers, he had ignored it. After all, the archives were supposed to be perfect, untouchable, maintained by the brightest minds of the Union. The righteous doctrine drifted in silence through Sector 9, a cold wasteland of stars and empty worlds. Vox sat hunched in the ill-fitting command chair, stretching his dorsal ridge with a faint groan. The chair was Polarian design, cheaper, mass-produced, and never comfortable for Draxians like him. His steaming cup of Tarka juice rested on the console beside him, fragrant and sharp. 3 cycles, 3 long cycles in this dead sector. Nothing had happened, nothing ever happened. Until the alarm blared. "Proximity alert," barked Tactical Officer Juru, his 3 eyes widening one after another in nervous sequence. "Unknown vessel bearing 217, closing fast." Vox sighed, picked up his cup, and set it back down without sipping. "Just once," he muttered. "I'd like to finish a drink before the galaxy falls apart." He rose, tail flicking against the deck. "Classification." Juru's claws danced across the control panel, his scales twitching. "That's the problem, Commander. No match in our archives, nothing even close, and it's ignoring Hales." The main screen flickered to life. Vox's twin hearts skipped. Out of the void came a ship like none he had ever seen, sleek, angular, its surfaces lined with strange protrusions that might have been weapons. It moved with an eerie grace like a predator circling prey. Science Officer Neat swiveled her chair. Aquilian, she was small and slender with patterned fur and ears that trembled when she was anxious. They were trembling now. "They're broadcasting, Commander. Frequency analysis suggests something ancient. Obsolete channels we haven't used in over 700 stellar cycles." "Play it." The speakers filled with sound. Harsh, quick bursts, tonal rises and falls that made Vox's scales prickle. The language was unlike anything in their translation banks. "Run it through the historical language matrix," Vox ordered. Neat's long fingers blurred over her console. "Processing now, but sir, our records for this sector are patchy." "Patchy?" Vox snapped. "Union archives are supposed to be comprehensive." Communications Officer Zell, youngest on the crew, hesitated before speaking. Her crest feathers quivered nervously. "Commander, there's a notation buried in the deep files. A purge, 250 cycles ago, ordered by the Grand Council themselves." The bridge went still. The Council never touched archives unless the truth was too dangerous to survive. Neat's ears twitched. Her voice was thin and strained. "Commander, I have a partial match. The language is human." The silence was total. "That's impossible," Vox said at last. "Humans are myths, scare stories for hatchlings." "The analysis is conclusive," Neat whispered. "And fragments of data remain. They were real. They came from this sector, and they were quarantined." Before Vox could reply, Juru shouted, "Energy spike from the vessel, weapons." "Shields," Vox roared, but too late. A blinding beam shot forward. The crew braced for impact, but the light stopped short just outside their hull. It swirled, condensed, and formed a projection in space. A figure appeared. Bipedal, bare skin, 2 eyes, no claws, no scales, hair only on the top of its head, fragile-looking, wrong. Its mouth moved, and through the speakers, the translation came in flawless Union standard. "Attention, alien vessel. This is Captain Thomas Rivera of the Earth exploration ship Phoenix Rising. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." Vox's scales crawled. Neat's ears flattened. "Commander, it's true, that is a human." The bridge crew stared at the image in silence. And then, impossibly, the human smiled. "After all," Captain Rivera said calmly, "your Union tried to erase us once. We never forgot." The image of Captain Thomas Rivera lingered in the air like a phantom of fire and smoke. His smile was too calm, too steady, too sharp. Vox's scales prickled as if someone had dragged a static charge over his back. The bridge of the righteous doctrine was silent, the only sounds the low hum of the ship and the uneven breathing of its crew. No one dared move. "You remember?" Vox finally asked, his voice low, controlled. Rivera's mouth twitched, the expression strange but unmistakably deliberate. We remember everything, Commander. Earth remembers, humanity remembers, but don't worry. His eyes narrowed, bright and dangerous. We come in peace, this time. Those two words hit harder than a plasma cannon. Juru's three eyes shifted nervously in sequence. Sir. Quiet, Vox snapped. His tactical officer silenced, though his claws flexed against his console. Zell's feathers puffed, trembling as she whispered, Commander, our archives indicate a strike. A purge. Earth itself was destroyed. Neat, her ears trembling violently, added, the records suggest the Council declared it a successful eradication. Yet here they are. Rivera's image leaned forward slightly. We would like to continue this conversation in person, perhaps face to face. Bring a small delegation. We have refreshments prepared. Protocol forbids this, Juru's voice cracked in alarm. First contact must always occur on Union-controlled territory. Boarding their vessel is reckless, dangerous. But Vox only stared at the human's steady eyes. Humans were supposed to be gone, legends, myths erased by fire. And yet here was one alive, speaking perfect standard, offering hospitality. The Council had lied. The archives had lied. And now everything Vox thought he knew trembled like a ship hit broadside. More than curiosity pulled at him. Fear did too, sharp and insistent. If the Council had hidden this, what else had they hidden? He could order retreat. He could signal Union command and wait for reinforcements. He could pretend this never happened. But he couldn't ignore those eyes. We accept, Vox said finally. His voice rang hard in the silent bridge. We will prepare a delegation. Rivera's face broke into another smile, strange, alien, unsettling. Wonderful, docking instructions inbound. Looking forward to it, Commander. The transmission cut. The light faded. The bridge returned to its normal glow, but the air was still heavy with the echo of impossible words. Juru immediately hissed. Sir, with all due respect, this is lunacy. We do not know what they want. We do not know if they are armed. We should retreat. Vox lifted a claw, silencing him. I know the risks, but the Union has lied to us. If we do not see this through, we remain blind. He turned sharply. Neat, dig deeper. Recover every scrap of purged archive data you can find. Zell, send an encrypted priority message to Union Command, limited distribution. Inform them of first contact with a human vessel. Juru, scan their ship down to its molecules. I want to know everything we can about what we're stepping into. His officers obeyed reluctantly. Vox dropped back into his chair, claws tapping the console. On the screen, the Phoenix Rising loomed, silent and waiting. Fire, Neat murmured under her breath. Vox turned, what? The fragments, she said, her ears twitching. The records describe humans as wielders of fire, not avoiding it like all civilized species, using it, controlling it, as a weapon. Vox let out a sharp, nervous laugh. Absurd. Fire is chaos. No sentient species would harness it willingly. Her wide eyes didn't waver. And yet the records are clear. They not only used it, they embraced it. For the first time in many cycles, Vox felt cold despite the warmth of the ship. Fire was terror, universal across the stars. Entire civilizations had been built to avoid it. But these humans, if they had truly mastered it, survived by it. Prepare the delegation shuttle, Vox said finally, his voice rough. We depart in 30 minutes. As his officers scrambled, Vox lifted his cup of Tarka juice once more. The liquid had gone cold, bitter on his tongue. He stared at the glowing silhouette of the Phoenix Rising, its edges sharp as blades, and whispered to himself. What kind of beings crawl out of fire, carrying it still in their hands? The shuttle detached from the righteous doctrine with a low metallic groan, drifting across the void toward the waiting human vessel. The Phoenix Rising loomed larger with every second, sleek angles, a predatory grace that made Vox's dorsal spines ache with unease. Inside the shuttle, silence reigned. Vox sat rigid in his harness, twin hearts thudding out of sync. Beside him, Neat's ears twitched so violently it was almost a vibration. Zell, younger than both, clutched her datapad tight, her crest feathers puffed in nervous spikes. Sir, Neat whispered at last, the archives, the fragments I recovered, they are disturbing. Speak, Vox ordered, though his voice came out harsher than intended. Her fur rippled as she gathered courage. The Council didn't just quarantine humans, they tried to erase them. Entire fleets dispatched. Coordinated strikes against their homeworld and colonies. Records claimed total eradication. Zell's eyes darted between them. But if that's true, what are they? She glanced at the window, where the human ship gleamed like a blade of light. Vox said nothing. The archives had lied. The council had lied. The truth waited aboard that ship, and soon they would face it. The docking clamps of the Phoenix Rising seized the shuttle with unnerving precision. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, bathing them in warm, bright light. "Stay behind me," Vox murmured to his officers as he stepped forward. His claws flexed unconsciously. The humans were waiting. Captain Rivera stood at the forefront, tall and strangely confident, with skin like polished copper and dark hair cropped short. Flanking him were two others, a broad, towering figure with darker skin and watchful eyes, clearly security, and a smaller woman with bright, sharp eyes and quick hands, carrying a data tablet. "Commander Vox," Rivera greeted, extending one of his strange, bare limbs forward. "Welcome aboard the Phoenix Rising. May I introduce Dr. Arya Patel, our xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Jackson Ward, security." Vox glanced at the limb, unsure. He kept his claws tucked close to his body and gave a stiff bow instead. "I thank you for your hospitality. My officers, Science Officer Neat, Communications Officer Zell." Patel dipped her head, smiling in a way that was both warm and unsettling. Ward simply stared, assessing them like threats. "Come," Rivera said smoothly. "We've prepared a conference room." The corridors of the Phoenix Rising gleamed with polished surfaces, clean and precise. But it wasn't the technology that froze Vox's steps. It was the fire. Contained flames flickered in transparent enclosures mounted to the walls, casting shadows that danced across the polished deck. Decorative, intentional, celebrated. "You," Vox's voice rasped. "You keep fire as decoration." Rivera glanced back, amused. "Of course, fire is comforting. Fire has always been with us. It protected us from predators, cooked our food, kept us alive through ice ages. Fire is what makes us human." Neat's ears flattened in horror. Zell clutched her datapad tighter. Vox forced his spines to stay flat, but a cold ripple of fear worked its way down his back. To embrace fire willingly was madness, and yet here they were, thriving. The conference room was simple but functional. A large table that seamlessly adjusted as they approached, reshaping to suit Draxian frames, Quillian proportions, even Zell's delicate crest. Thoughtful, prepared. Rivera sat leaning forward, his strange hands pressed flat to the table. His eyes locked on Vox's, sharp and intent. "I imagine you have questions," he said, "about how we survived, about why we're here." Vox inclined his head stiffly. "Our records say the eradication was successful. Earth was destroyed, billions dead." Rivera's gaze darkened. "That much is true. Earth burned, 11 billion lives lost. But humanity doesn't die easily. We had colonies beyond their reach. Generation ships already between stars, outposts buried so deep in moons and asteroids your fleets never found them. We endured." Dr. Patel spoke then, her voice quieter but no less firm. "You don't understand Earth, Commander. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also a death trap. Constant storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators. Catastrophe was normal. We didn't just survive, we thrived. Adversity shaped us. When the Council struck, they only triggered instincts we'd carried for millennia." Neat swallowed audibly. "So you rebuilt." Rivera's mouth curved. "We did more than rebuild. We learned, we adapted, we advanced." Ward finally spoke, his deep voice rough as stone. "Meanwhile, your Union stagnated. 400 cycles, same ships, same weapons, same tech. You value stability, we value survival." Vox bristled. "The Union values order, we keep peace." Rivera's smile sharpened, not reaching his eyes. "And peace has made you soft. This ship is 2 generations beyond anything your Union fields. If we wanted revenge, Commander, you wouldn't have seen us coming. But we're not here for vengeance." Zell, voice trembling, blurted, "Then why reveal yourselves now?" Rivera and Patel exchanged a glance. Ward's jaw tightened. "Because," Rivera said slowly, deliberately, "we no longer have a choice." He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming like firelight. "Something is coming, something worse than us." Phoenix Rising trembled as alarms howled through its corridors. Red light pulsed along the ceiling in rhythmic bursts, bathing the conference room in a harsh glow. Captain Rivera tapped the device on his wrist. "Bridge, report." A crisp human voice crackled back. "Unusual energy signatures detected at system edge. Pattern matches harvester technology." Vox stiffened. Harvesters, unknown to Union archives. Rivera's expression hardened, losing its diplomatic polish. Red alert, charge all batteries, shields up. He turned back to Vox. Commander, I suggest you and your delegation return to your shuttle. But Vox's instincts, sharpened by years of service and sharpened further by fear, flared hot. No, we stay, we observe, we learn. If these harvesters are as dangerous as you imply, then we need to see them with our own eyes. Rivera studied him for a long, tense moment, then gave a short nod. Fine, but follow instructions. These things don't negotiate. The harvester appears. The humans ushered Vox, Neat, and Zell onto the Phoenix Rising's bridge. Unlike Union bridges cluttered with overlapping consoles and ceremonial glyphs, this one was circular, stripped to pure efficiency. Stations ringed outward like ripples on water, each occupied by focused humans. At the center stood the command chair, occupied now by Rivera. On the massive forward display, the void twisted. And then it arrived. The harvester ship clawed its way into normal space with a shudder that rattled every bone in Vox's body. It was grotesque, asymmetrical like machinery fused with rotting flesh. Its hull didn't reflect light, it drank it, a blackness that made the stars themselves retreat. It pulsed, alive and mechanical at once, moving with a predator's hunger. Zell clutched her datapad to her chest. What is that? Dr. Patel's voice was low, almost reverent in its horror. The reason humanity left the shadows. The first strike. Targeting solution acquired, a human weapons officer called. Warning shot, Rivera ordered, calm but clipped. Propulsion and sensor arrays, let's see if it understands firepower. The ship shuddered as its weapons spoke, beams of condensed energy lancing across the void, sharper and more focused than anything Vox had seen. They cut into the harvester's hide, searing grooves across its twisted hull. No effect, reported Tactical. Target accelerating toward us. Rivera's lips thinned. As expected, they never learn. The harvester lunged forward with horrifying speed, its hull splitting open to reveal glowing tendrils of plasma. Bolts of crimson energy screamed toward the Phoenix Rising. Impact shook the deck beneath Vox's claws, but the human vessel held. Shields flared in arcs of blue light, stronger than anything the Union deployed. Rivera's voice was steady. All batteries fire at will. The fire unleashed. What followed was fire given form. Human weapons lit the void, streams of coherent light that bent space around them, projectiles that flickered in and out of phase like ghosts, warheads that split into swarms of smaller flames. Every strike hit with surgical precision. Still, the harvester pressed closer, relentless, its hull knitting itself back together with grotesque speed. Bring up the Nova charge, Rivera commanded. Vox's scales stiffened. Nova, what is that? Ward, the human security officer, gave a grim smile. You'll see. A small projectile launched, almost unimpressive against the storm of weapons. It struck the harvester amidships. And then the stars burned. A miniature sun erupted in the void, light so intense that even the Phoenix Rising's filters dimmed to near blackout. The harvester shrieked, a sound not carried by air but by every nerve in Vox's body, as it dissolved into incandescent vapor. When the light faded, nothing remained but dispersing atoms. The truth revealed. Vox staggered back, his heart's hammering in his chest. Neat's ears lay flat against her skull, her fur slick with cold sweat. Zell stared, feathers splayed wide in shock. They had just watched humans create a star, unleash it like a blade, and destroy a nightmare. That, Vox whispered hoarsely, that was... Fire, Rivera finished, his gaze grim. Refined, controlled, terrible, but necessary. Zell's voice trembled. If that was only one ship. Rivera turned, eyes cold as the void. That was a scout. Where there's one, there are more, dozens, hundreds, and scouts always report before they die. Dr. Patel added quietly, the harvesters consume all resources, all life. They convert everything they touch into more of themselves. For 70 cycles, they've crept closer, and your Union has no idea. Vox's twin hearts thundered. The Council's lies suddenly felt like chains tightening around his throat. The Union was blind, and the only ones who could see the coming storm were the humans, creatures erased from history, wielders of fire who should not exist. Rivera leaned forward in his command chair. his gaze locking on Vox. You asked why we revealed ourselves now, that's your answer. The Harvesters are coming, and if we fight them alone, we may still survive. But if the Union stays blind, you won't. The Phoenix Rising's bridge had gone eerily quiet after the Harvesters' destruction. Smoke from overloaded consoles hung faintly in the recycled air, mixing with the tang of ozone. Humans moved with crisp efficiency, running damage reports, rerouting power, speaking in clipped tones. There were no cheers, no relief, no celebration, only the grim discipline of those who had fought too often to waste time savoring victory. For Vox, Neat, and Zell, the silence pressed heavier than the battle. They had seen something the Union's archives swore did not exist. Humans alive, humans fighting, humans wielding fire like gods of old. Captain Rivera finally broke the stillness. He turned his chair toward them, face illuminated by the faint glow of readouts. His voice was steady but edged with steel. That was a scout, one ship. Alone, scouts always mean more a-coming, and when they come, they don't come as raiders, they come as storms. Zell's crest feathers trembled. If that was only a scout, then what do the larger ones look like? Rivera's eyes darkened. Planets burned to ash, systems stripped bare, populations erased, that's what they look like. Dr. Patel stepped forward, holding a slim crystalline shard. She placed it gently before Vox. This data core contains everything we know about the Harvesters, how to detect them, how to fight them, how to survive them. Vox stared at it, claws curling slightly. Why give this to me? Why help us after what the Union did to you? Rivera leaned back, folding his strange hands together. Because isolation is death. You saw what one Harvester could do. Humanity might hold them back for a while, but not forever. The Union has fleets, numbers, infrastructure. We have fire, yes, but fire needs fuel. Together, maybe we stand a chance. Apart, you will all burn. Neat's ears twitched. Her voice was low, uncertain. Sir, there's more in the archives, more than they wanted us to know. Vox turned. Explain. She swallowed. The purge wasn't just about humans. The Council didn't only erase you from history. They erased themselves. The founders of the Union. Whole sections of early records are missing. The gaps align with the Harvester incursions humans describe. Ward, the human security officer, gave a humorless smile. Now you see, they didn't want you to know the truth, that the Union itself was born in the shadow of these things. Vox felt his scales tighten, his twin hearts pounding. You mean the Council knew of the Harvesters and buried it? Rivera's smile was bitter. Wouldn't be the first time leaders thought fear too dangerous to share. Neat's fur stood on end. If this is true, then everything, our laws, our fleets, our very identity, rests on lies. Rivera's gaze softened just for a moment. And yet here we are, Commander, alive, talking, that's what matters. We don't come asking for vengeance. We don't come demanding apologies. We come with truth and fire. The Ash lesson. Zell, who had been silent, spoke up with trembling voice. In the fragments I accessed, there was something called the Ash lesson. Do you know what that was? Rivera's expression darkened further. He nodded to Patel. She activated the data core. A hologram sprang into the air, an image of a world green and blue not unlike Union homeworlds. The projection shifted. Flames spread. Oceans boiled. The world blackened into a husk. Patel's voice was quiet. That was a Murelian colony. They attacked a human settlement, thinking us weak, easy prey. This was our response, the Ash lesson. Zell gasped, her feathers rattling against her datapad. Neat pressed her ears flat against her skull. Vox gripped the edge of the table so tightly his claws left dents. You burned an entire planet. Rivera's gaze did not waver. Yes, we did, not because we wanted to, but because mercy was a language they refused to understand. After that, the Council labeled us uncontrollable, dangerous, too dangerous to be allowed to live. Ward's low voice added, so they tried to erase us, but they failed. The silence that followed was heavier than any battle. Vox's conflict. Vox's scales crawled with conflicting emotions. Revulsion at the destruction he had seen, fear of the fire humanity wielded, but beneath it all, a flicker of something he had not felt in cycles, hope. If these humans were truly what the archives said, monsters born of flame, then why come offering data? Why share their warnings? Why risk revealing themselves at all? Perhaps because they understood something the Union had forgotten. Survival meant adaptation, not stagnation. He realized his claws still hovered over the crystalline shard. It seemed to pulse faintly, as if waiting for him to claim it. A dangerous gift, knowledge sharp enough to cut the galaxy open. Rivera's eyes locked onto his. That crystal can save billions, or doom them. Use it wisely, Commander, because whether your Union wants it or not, the fire has returned. Vox exhaled slowly, his heart's racing. He reached out, hesitated, then finally closed his claw around the shard. It was lighter than he expected, almost fragile, and yet it burned cold in his palm, a weight of truth heavy enough to topple empires. He knew then that his life had changed forever, that the galaxy itself had changed forever. The shuttle ride back to the righteous doctrine was a hollow blur. Vox sat stiff in his seat, the crystalline shard heavy in his claw. It seemed to hum against his palm, though he knew that was only his racing twin hearts. Neat sat across from him, her fur slicked flat, her ears pinned. She stared at the shard like it might suddenly burst into flame. Zell sat beside her, feathers pressed tight to her skull, clutching her data pad until her knuckles whitened. Neither spoke. The silence said enough. When the shuttle docked, Juru was waiting, his three eyes frantic. "Commander, you were gone too long. The Council has demanded." His words faltered when he saw the shard. What is that?" Vox brushed past him. "Later, prepare the ship for immediate departure. We have work to do." The weight of truth. In his private quarters, the door sealed behind him, Vox placed the shard on his console. Its glow pulsed faintly, beckoning. With a clawed finger, he activated it. The air filled with images, data streams, human voices. 1,000 fragments of history the Union had buried. Earth's fall, the ash lesson, the harvester incursions. Entire worlds burning, entire species swallowed. But also images of survival. Humans digging into asteroids, launching generation ships into the void, adapting technologies that seemed impossible. Fire woven into every step of their existence. The shard contained blueprints, too, schematics for modified sensors that could detect harvester signatures, instructions for adapting Union reactors, even outlines of defensive strategies. Tools the Union desperately needed but didn't know existed. Vox's scales tingled. He knew what would happen if he reported this. The Council would panic. They might silence him, silence his crew, silence everything to maintain their lies, to protect their grip on a stagnant order. And yet, if he stayed silent, the harvesters would come. The Union's fleets would be blind. Entire sectors would vanish into ash. He felt trapped between fire and shadow. Confrontation. The door chimed. Vox considered ignoring it, but the chime came again urgent. He sighed. "Enter." Neat slipped inside, ears trembling. She hesitated before speaking. "Sir, the data you carry, it could change everything." "I know," Vox rasped. Her fur bristled. "The Council will not thank you. They will destroy you for exposing their lies, maybe destroy us all." "Then what do you suggest?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Give it back. Destroy it. Pretend we saw nothing." Vox's claws tightened against the console. "And when the harvesters arrive?" Neat's ears drooped. She said nothing. Zell entered then, feathers quivering, her eyes wide. "Sir, I've decoded parts of the shard. The humans weren't lying. The harvesters are real. And the records they found, they suggest the Council knew. They knew centuries ago. They tried to fight them once, and they failed." Vox stared at her, "And they buried the truth." Zell nodded. "Yes, because they feared panic more than extinction." Neat whispered, "Perhaps they were right." "No," Vox said sharply. "Fear is not the enemy, lies are." "The decision." He rose, towering over them, scales gleaming in the dim light. "We cannot unlearn this. We cannot go back. The Union is blind, and only the humans see what is coming. If we remain silent, billions will die. If we speak, we may be silenced, but the truth will burn through their chains." He looked at the shard, its glow flickering like a heartbeat. Fire itself captured in crystal. "Commander," Zell's voice was small, "if you reveal this, the Council will brand you a traitor." Vox's spines bristled. "Then let them. Better a traitor with truth than a loyal fool marching into fire." He lifted the shard, holding it aloft. The light painted his claws in red and gold. In it he saw the future, not safe, not certain, but alive. His hearts pounded as he gave the order. "Prepare an encrypted transmission to the Council. Full priority, we deliver the truth." The spark. As his officers scrambled, Vox stared into the glow of the shard. The humans had given them fire. Now he would set it loose upon the galaxy. The Grand Council chamber shimmered with cold authority. Towering spires of polished stone and metal stretched toward a vaulted ceiling etched with ancient runes. Hundreds of delegates filled the tiers, their voices a low susurrus of suspicion and scorn. Commander Vox stood alone at the center, the crystalline shard clutched tight in his claw. His scales glistened under the harsh lights, but inside his twin hearts pounded like war drums. The Chancellor's voice cut through the chamber, deep and commanding. "Commander Vox of the Righteous Doctrine, you were dispatched to patrol an empty sector, yet you claim to have encountered impossibilities. Explain yourself." Vox's throat felt dry. He forced the words out steady and clear. "Honored Council, I bring proof that the archives lied. Humanity survived. They are alive, stronger than ever, and they bring warning of a threat that could consume us all." The chamber erupted in outrage. Voices shouted, scoffed, demanded silence. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed to slits. "These are dangerous claims. You risk destabilizing the Union itself with such fantasy." Vox's spines flared. His voice rose, echoing through the chamber. "Silence." The roar froze them. Even the Chancellor blinked, startled. Vox had never raised his voice in the chamber before. He slammed the shard into the Council's central projector. Light exploded outward, filling the vast hall with forbidden truth. Images flickered. Earth's burning, humanity's survival, harvester ships devouring worlds, colonies turned to ash. Human voices rang out in clear Union standard, telling their story of fire and survival. And then Captain Rivera's face appeared above them all, projected larger than life. His eyes blazed with intensity, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "We come not to conquer, we come to save you from what is coming. Choose wisely, Union, the fire is at your door." The hall erupted again, but now it was chaos, fear, disbelief, denial, awe. Some shouted for war, some for suppression, some for alliance. Vox stood firm, his claw still pressed to the projector. "You tried to erase them, you called them myths, but they are real, and they bring fire we cannot ignore." The Council fractures. The Chancellor rose, face twisted with fury. "You presume to bring forbidden knowledge into this hall, you risk panic, rebellion, collapse." Vox met his gaze with burning eyes. Better panic than blind obedience, better collapse than extinction. Gasps rippled through the chamber. No one spoke to the Chancellor that way. But Zell's young voice rose from the delegation seats. She had smuggled herself into the chamber, her crest feathers trembling but her words clear. "He speaks truth. I saw the humans myself. I heard their warnings. I saw their fire." Neat stepped forward as well, her ears trembling but her chin high. "And I verified the records. The Council knew of the Harvesters centuries ago. You buried it. You buried us all in lies." The chamber thundered with dissent. Delegates shouted accusations, demands, fear-given voice. The Chancellor raised a hand for silence, his voice icy. "You have doomed yourself, Commander Vox. You will be stripped of rank. You will be silenced." But he was cut off by the shard, still glowing. Rivera's face leaned forward, his voice like rolling thunder. "We are watching, we are listening. We survived your purge. We survived extinction. If you try to bury us again, know this, fire cannot be contained forever." The projection snapped out. Silence. The turning point. The Chancellor's mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, the Council looked uncertain. Vox straightened, his voice ringing with resolve. "The Harvesters are coming. Humanity stands ready. Will the Union cower behind lies, or will we face the fire together?" A murmur spread through the chamber, growing, shifting. Not all were convinced, but enough were shaken, enough to fracture the Council's control. The spark had been lit. Aftermath. Later, alone in his quarters aboard the Righteous Doctrine, Vox stared out at the stars. The Council had not executed him. Not yet. Too many delegates demanded investigation, demanded answers. The Union was split, no longer united in silence. And in the distance, he knew the humans were watching, waiting. He opened his claw. The shard pulsed faintly in his palm like a heartbeat of flame. Rivera's words echoed in his mind. Fire cannot be contained forever. Vox exhaled slowly, his scales shimmering in the starlight. The galaxy would burn brighter now, whether in unity or in ash. Epilogue. Far across the void, aboard the Phoenix Rising, Captain Rivera stood with Dr. Patel and Lieutenant Ward, watching the faint transmission flicker out. Ward grunted. Think he'll survive the fallout? Rivera's lips curved into a thin smile. He already has. He carried the fire into their chamber. Whether they embrace it or burn from it, that choice is theirs now. Patel's eyes were somber. And the harvesters? Rivera looked out into the endless black, where distant shadows stirred. They're still coming, but at least now we won't face them alone.